Hello, my name is John Mark Ford, and my wife Charlene and I moved to Asheville just over a year ago from Birmingham, Alabama. I lived in Brevard until I was 12, and I often say it took me 50 years, but I finally made it back up here. For most of our adult lives, though, we lived in Birmingham, and many years ago at the Cathedral Church of the Advent in Birmingham, I heard a sermon preached by Archbishop Desmond Tutu on today's text. I don't remember much about the sermon, except that his focus was on the phrase in the reading where Jesus said, "And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." Bishop Tutu is not a large man, but he has a huge, bubbly, engaging persona. And in his marvelously dramatic style, I remember Bishop Tutu extending his arms and saying, when I am lifted up, I will draw all, all. I couldn't help but think of that sermon after hearing the news of yet another massacre in our beloved country last week, this time in Atlanta, this time directed mostly at members of the Asian American community. Just another shooting in a seemingly unending stream of shootings targeted at the Black community or the LGBTQ community, those of Asian descent, attacks and venom spewed at people of Cuban descent or Hispanics or Native Americans, attacks by disturbed members of our community, citizens of this country, against those viewed by them as other, as less. Sometimes egged on by unscrupulous people using these biased and racist attitudes that are embedded in our culture to gain power or advance a career. Attacks that are almost always manifested in fear of the other or a mistrust of the other or a suspicion of people in this group or that who are different than we are. Belief that somehow they are not worthy or that they are less. These divisions run deep in our society, and they've been passed down by the generations before us and through us onto our own children. Fortunately, these feelings are not usually acted out in violence, although the incidence of hate crimes has surged. But the idea, the mindset that some of us are less valuable, less deserving than others, is a part of our heritage. In this gospel reading, Jesus is near the end of his ministry when impending death has surely focused his mind on the things that are most important. Here is Jesus saying, when I'm lifted up, I will draw all. Why would he do that? And really, did he mean all? Broken as we are, why would Jesus be willing to die for us? Who are we that he would willingly submit himself to the kind of death he knew was ahead of him? Several years ago, I read about a school teacher who accepted a volunteer position visiting and teaching children who were patients in a large city hospital. One day the phone rang and she received her first assignment as a new volunteer. She took the child's name and room number and was told by his teacher that this boy was studying nouns and adverbs in his class before he was hospitalized. It wasn't until the teacher got outside the boy's hospital room that she realized he was a patient in the burn unit. She was prepared to teach English grammar, but she was not prepared to witness the horrible look and smell of badly burned human flesh. And she was not prepared to see a young boy in great pain either. She wanted to hold her nose, to turn away, to leave faster than she came, but said later that she couldn't just walk away. So she clumsily stammered over to his bedside and simply said, "I'm the hospital teacher, and your teacher sent me to help you with your nouns and verbs." The next morning, a nurse from the burn unit asked her, "What did you do to that boy?" With a puzzled look, the teacher began to apologize, but the nurse interrupted her. "You don't understand. We've been really worried about him. His condition has been deteriorating over the past few days because he seemed to have completely given up hope. But ever since you were here with him yesterday, his whole attitude has changed, and he is fighting back and responding to treatment. It's as though he decided to live." When the nurse later questioned him about it, the boy said, "I figured I was doomed, that I was going to die, until I saw that teacher." And then his tears welled in his eyes. He said, "But when I saw her, I realized they wouldn't send a teacher to work on nouns and adverbs with a dying boy, would they?" None of us, beloved children of God, are hopeless or worthless. We are valued. We are worthwhile. We're loved. We're cherished. We know this because Jesus wouldn't die for worthless people, would he? And for whom did he say he would die? Only some of us? Only the powerful, or those who live lives of privilege or have a certain background or skin color? No. Jesus said all. None of us more or less important. Not one of us without worth. Not one of us less loved or cherished. Jesus' death was upon him, and in this final public discourse of his life, he speaks some of the most important words of his entire ministry. When I am lifted up," Jesus said, "I will draw all people to myself." All. All.